Imagine humanity as this brilliant multi-billion-dollar engineering firm.
Right.
We can engineer these incredible submarines to withstand the crushing pressure of the ocean floor. We can build towering skyscrapers that, pierce the clouds, and we can literally split the atom.
Yeah, we've built this massive, impenetrable fortress of modern civilization.
Exactly. But there is a massive problem. Despite all those locks, all those alarms, and, well, all the brilliant architecture, the intruder is already inside the house.
It's a scary thought.
It really is. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are embarking on a profound exploration into the very root of human anxiety.
And our mission for you today is to track down that intruder.
Yes. Today's insights come directly from a captivating transcript of a talk by the renowned philosopher J. Krishnamurti titled The Ending of Fear, which is provided by the Krishnamurti Foundation Trust.
Okay, let's unpack this because the core premise here is, honestly, it's a bit of a gut punch.
Oh, absolutely. The argument is that despite all our supposed human intelligence, we have completely failed to solve the oldest problem in our minds.
Right. And worse, most of the cures we rely on to fix our anxiety are actually just elaborate distractions.
Yeah, which just forces a massive reevaluation of how we spend our energy.
Yeah.
I mean, we have absolutely mastered the external physical world.
Right, but the internal landscape remains completely wild, right? And heavily guarded by this shadow we just cannot seem to shake.
So true.
Krishnamurti starts by outlining the sheer exhausting volume of our fears. We harbor this endless list.
Oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah, we have the primal fear of the dark, the overarching fear of simply living, and, the deeply social fear of public opinion. Like, we're terrified of what the neighbor might say or think.
When we fear our spouses, right? Our partners.
Exactly. And then there is the great economic paradox of modern life. We suffer from a deep, gnawing fear of lacking economic security.
But the moment we actually achieve that security, you're instantly plagued by the fear of losing it.
Yes. It is a perpetual motion machine of anxiety that, honestly, it never actually powers down.
Right. You spend your whole life climbing the ladder to get the money and the status, and instead of relief, you just upgrade to a much more expensive, high-stakes brand of panic.
Which is such a wild irony.
It really highlights what Krishnamurti presents as the great paradox of our species. I mean, think about the staggering brain power that humanity applies to incredibly complex, difficult, and even destructive problems.
Oh, totally. Generals on 1,000 sides sit down and plan wars with meticulous detail.
Right. We design airplanes, we figure out how to destroy and conquer with just terrifying efficiency.
Or we apply that same intense, laser-focused brain power to making money.
Yeah, when a human being wants something materially, they work at it with incredible seriousness. But when it comes to this enormous sense of fear that has plagued humanity since the beginning of days,
We just accept it.
exactly, we do not apply that same serious brain power to dissecting our own terror.
No, we treat psychological suffering as like an unavoidable condition of life, rather than an engineering problem to be solved.
Right.
And what makes this collective failure so glaring is that fear is not just some abstract philosophical concept hovering in the ether. It is a brutal physical reality.
Oh, yeah, his description of it is so vivid.
It is. He points out that when there is fear, the physical organism actually shrinks. The nervous system contracts.
No.
Yeah, the brain becomes addled and essentially paralyzed. It completely ruins your sleep. It bleeds into every interaction in your daily life. And it just breeds this toxic cloud of suspicion, anxiety, and depression.
And because that physical discomfort is so intense, we desperately cling to the status quo, don't we?
Exactly. We become terrified of change, hoping that if everything around us stays exactly the same, maybe the fear won't escalate.
I read his description of that physical paralysis, and I immediately thought of a computer analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It is like owning a state-of-the-art supercomputer that has the processing power to map the human genome, but the second you try to open a basic text document, the entire system just completely crashes.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. The hardware is undeniably incredible, but the operating system has a fatal flaw in its code. But if fear is this devastating, and if it is this intensely physical, it begs the obvious question. Why haven't the professionals, the therapists and psychologists, been able to fix our programming?
Right. We have an entire global industry for this.
Exactly. Thousands of self-help books. If humanity is so smart, why hasn't the field of psychology solved this yet?
Well, that failure of the professionals is precisely where Krishnamurti points his critique.
Okay.
He argues that psychologists and therapists largely just offer verbal explanations for the causes of fear.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah, they give your anxiety a label, they categorize it, they trace it back to a childhood event, and they explain the mechanism. But an explanation is not a cure.
Right. Giving a disease a Latin name doesn't actually remove the disease from your body.
Exactly. In fact, he humorously, yet pointedly, suggests that these experts might be just as scared as anyone else.
Wait, really? The
Oh, yeah.
experts?
Oh, yeah. He mentions having met several of them and realizing that beneath the professional veneer, they are just as frightened about their own lives, their own security, or their own status as you and I are.
Wow, which is a terrifying realization when you are actively seeking help. You go to the expert to fix the leaky boat, and you realize they are bailing water out of their own boat just as frantically. They just have like a nicer bucket.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And to explain why this purely analytical professional approach fails, Krishnamurti uses a really striking analogy. He compares fear to a massive tree.
Okay, a tree.
Yeah, a beautiful tree has a solid trunk, but it also has hundreds of branches and thousands of leaves. Fear, which is inherently ugly, operates the exact same way. It has thousands of branches.
Like all those specific fears we listed earlier,
Sure.
right? The fear of the dark, of the neighbor, of the bank failing, losing your job.
Exactly. Those specific anxieties are just the expressions of fear. They are the branches.
I see.
Trimming the branches is completely futile. You clip one off, you solve one specific insecurity in therapy, and another one immediately grows back to take its place. We have to go directly to the root so the entire structure of expressions naturally withers away.
So the therapist saying, let's spend the next 6 months talking about your fear of public speaking, is literally just trimming a tiny leaf off a massive, deep-rooted tree of dread.
Exactly, because they are dealing entirely in words and descriptions. And Krishnamurti emphasizes a crucial cognitive trap here, the illusion of explanation. He insists that the word is not the thing.
Right.
He uses the analogy of a marvelous painting of a mountain. Imagine a breathtaking painting of the Himalayas hung in the grandest museum in the world.
Okay.
No matter how perfectly the artist captures the light, the snow, and the shadows, that picture is not the mountain. You cannot climb the canvas. You cannot breathe the thin, freezing air.
Wow.
Similarly, the word fear, or the psychological explanation of your trauma, is not the actual physical depth and strength of the fear itself. The explanation is merely a painting of the problem.
It is the ultimate trap of the intellect. We mistake the map for the territory. It is like reading a menu when you are starving. No matter how beautifully the steak is described in the text, reading the menu won't keep you alive.
What's fascinating here is his uncompromising insistence that you cannot live with someone else's truth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, an explanation handed to you by an expert, a guru, a priest, or a psychologist is completely useless because it is their discovery, their formulation. You are just adopting their words to comfort yourself. To actually dismantle the structure of fear, you have to bypass the descriptions entirely and discover the raw truth of it yourself.
So, if the experts can't hand us the answer on a silver platter, and their words are just paintings of the problem, where do we actually look to find this hidden root? It feels like we have to stop looking at the objects of our fear and start looking at the engine of the mind itself. How does the mind actually generate this dread?
That is exactly the pivot Krishnamurti makes. To find that root, he directs us inward to the very mechanics of how human consciousness operates.
Okay.
We have to look at the two underlying engines that generate all our mental suffering. Those twin roots are thought and time. And ultimately, he argues, thought is time. They are totally inseparable.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of that, because stating that thought is time is a massive counterintuitive concept.
Yeah.
How does thought create fear?
Well, based on his transcript, the mechanism seems to be that thought is obsessively projecting into the future. It operates like a film director constantly creating elaborate cinematic scenarios in our heads.
Oh, like playing out worst-case scenarios.
Exactly. Krishnamurti gives the example of seeing a hearse go by with flowers and horses, and immediately thought says, I might die tomorrow.
Or you think, I have money in the bank right now, but the bank might fail.
Yeah.
Or my relationship is great today, but my partner might leave me next year.
Right. I printed a book, but what if the critics hate it and it's a total failure? Thought is constantly manufacturing a hypothetical future reality and then reacting to it emotionally as if it is happening right in this exact second.
Yeah, that's so true.
And one of the most poignant examples he highlights, which he specifically calls the most childish thing in the world, is the deep-seated desire to be known.
Ooh, to be famous.
or just recognized. We think, I want to be known, I want to be recognized, and I am terrified because somebody else is already known much more than I am.
Right.
This craving for status, this fear of being a nobody, is entirely constructed by thought projecting a mental image of you into the future and worrying about how other people will perceive that image.
The fear of irrelevance. It is arguably the defining anxiety of our modern era, especially with social media.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we have the other twin in this engine, which is time. Time fuels fear through this constant, agonizing anticipation of what might happen. But it also looks backward, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the dread that something you did in the past, a mistake you made 10 years ago, might be used as blackmail against you in the future.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It is almost like human beings are trapped inside a mental time machine. But the controls are broken. It only travels forward to worst-case scenarios and catastrophic futures, or backward to the most embarrassing, threatening moments of your past.
Right.
It absolutely refuses to just park in the present moment.
That analogy captures the exact dysfunction Krishnamurti is pointing out. And if we look closely at the gears of this broken time machine, we see exactly why thought and time are the exact same mechanism. To crave a future gain, or to fear a future loss, you have to project an image of yourself across a span of time. There is the physical you sitting in a chair right now, and there is the conceptual you tomorrow who might get fired from their job.
Okay, I follow.
That gap between now and tomorrow is what we call time, and that gap is entirely built by thought. Without the psychological concept of time, there is literally no space for fear to exist. Fear requires a what if, and what if fundamentally requires a future.
That makes perfect mechanical sense. We are constantly projecting this conceptual self into the future, and we are terrified of what will happen to it. But we have to dig deeper. What is this self actually so afraid of at its very core?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Right. When you strip away the surface anxieties, the fear of the bank failing, the fear of the neighbor gossiping, the fear of losing your reputation, what is the bedrock emotion sitting at the bottom of the well?
According to Krishnamurti, it comes down to one absolutely terrifying emotional state: loneliness.
Just loneliness.
A profound, desperate, frightening sense of absolute loneliness. That is the true core of human anxiety. Humans are so completely terrified of this inward emptiness, this deep void inside ourselves, that we will grab onto literally anything to avoid feeling it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we use attachments as psychological crutches. He lists them off. We hold desperately onto a spouse. We cling to a club or a political identity. We cling to a god, to rituals, to friends.
Just to avoid the void.
Exactly. We might follow some guru and, as he bluntly puts it, absorb all their nonsense just to feel a sense of belonging. We decorate our internal lives with these attachments. But if you were to forcefully strip away all those decorations, all those external identities and routines, the human being is left just utterly, devastatingly lonely.
It is like we are living in a massive, dark, empty room, and we are frantically trying to furnish it with all these distractions. Doom scrolling, busy work, job titles, social dramas, just so we don't have to hear the echo of our own voice.
Yes.
But why are we so isolated to begin with? Where does that specific void come from?
Well, Krishnamurti argues that this loneliness is a direct result of how we live. Our days are spent entirely in self-centeredness. We take the vast, extraordinary, infinite existence of life, and we shrink it down, narrow it down into this tiny box called small little me.
My problems, my bank account, my reputation, my desires.
It is the ultimate tragedy of the ego. By obsessing over the self in order to protect it, we completely isolate it. We cut ourselves off from nature, from genuine unselfish connection, from the vastness of reality, and we trap ourselves in this tiny, fragile, suffocating bubble.
So true.
And the moment those external crutches are threatened, the moment the job is at risk or the relationship gets rocky, the bubble feels like it is going to pop, and we are forced to look at that absolute despair.
Sitting in that fire without reaching for a crutch is a radical internal shift. But if self-centeredness shrinks our world down to this terrifying small little me, isn't it incredibly dangerous to just let go of our crutches and face that total emptiness? If I drop the distractions, I have to face that.
It feels like stepping off a cliff, which is precisely why humanity has spent thousands of years inventing ways to avoid it. But here is Krishnamurti's uncompromising solution.
Okay.
He says you must face that feeling of, my God, how lonely I am, completely. But, and this is the absolute crux of his philosophy, you must do it without using the word to describe it.
Wait, without the word?
Remember, the word is not the thing. If you sit in that emptiness and label it loneliness or despair, your brain instantly accesses a massive cognitive filing cabinet of every time you've ever felt lonely, abandoned, or scared in your entire life.
Oh, I see.
You are no longer experiencing the raw physical sensation of the present moment. You are experiencing the accumulated history of the word.
That is a brilliant breakdown of the mechanics. By labeling it, you trigger the memory, and the memory triggers the panic.
Exactly.
He is saying you must look at that raw physical sensation in your chest, be with it completely, and not move away from it. Do not reach for the phone. Do not turn on the TV. Do not analyze it.
Just sit with it.
Only by staying with the raw, unlabeled fact of the feeling can a radical change happen in the brain. But we still have an external life to live.
Sure.
I mean, I can't just stare into the void when I'm trying to remember where I parked my car or when I need to pay my taxes. So what does this all mean for our daily existence? How do we straddle those two worlds?
Krishnamurti absolutely acknowledges this practical reality. He draws a very clear, strict boundary. Are thought and time necessary? Yes, absolutely. At the physical and functional level.
Okay, good.
You need thought and time to get from here to there, to drive a car, to engineer those submarines we talked about, or to catch a train. The entire physical world operates on the mechanics of time and thought.
Right.
But, and this is the great divide, inwardly, inside the skin, as he describes it, in the psychological realm, thought and time are absolutely not necessary.
So using thought to build a bridge or plan a schedule, completely necessary.
Yes.
Using thought to build an identity or project a future emotional state, a recipe for disaster.
Precisely. The moment you bring thought and time inward to build the self, you guarantee perpetual fear, because you are taking your internal state of being and subjecting it to the same conditions of decay, loss, and unpredictability that exist in the physical world.
Wow.
The practical solution he offers is that the brain must actively watch itself. It must watch its own movements every single minute, like a hawk, to ensure that thought and time do not cross that border into the psychological realm.
Watch like a hawk. Every
Wow.
single minute. Let me push back practically here because that sounds completely exhausting.
It does sound like a lot.
It sounds like a full-time job. How does a person live a normal life, raise kids, work a demanding job, navigate society, while constantly playing heavily armed border patrol with their own thoughts?
It sounds exhausting to us because we associate the word watching with suppression, control, and conflict. We think it means using one part of the brain to beat another part of the brain into submission.
Right, like a fight.
But Krishnamurti redefines what this discipline actually is. He points out that the root meaning of the word discipline is disciple, which simply means one who is learning. A true disciple is learning all the time.
Oh, I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah, they never reach a stagnant point where they boldly claim, I have learnt it all. So, watching like a hawk is not an exhausting, white-knuckled suppression of thought. It is a state of active, vibrant perception.
Okay.
It is peripheral awareness. You use thought as a practical tool when you need to navigate a problem at work, but you drop it the exact second it tries to morph into an anxious identity.
It's like picking up a hammer to hit a nail.
Mm-hmm.
You use the hammer for its functional purpose,
Yeah.
but you don't carry the heavy hammer to bed with you and lay awake worrying about it rusting.
Right, exactly.
You just put the tool down when the job is done.
But we struggle immensely to put the psychological hammer down because we are caught in what he calls the trap of superficiality. He notes how humans will wander the earth, we will attend endless seminars, seek advice from gurus, and read hundreds of books, accumulating all this secondhand knowledge.
Guilty.
Yeah, right. Yet we only ever ask superficial questions. We ask how to be a little less stressed, how to be a little more productive, or how to get a slight edge over our neighbor. We make our lives incredibly superficial.
We stay on the surface.
He urges us to demand deep, serious answers from ourselves. We have to exercise our own brains and directly experience our own feelings rather than constantly waiting to be told the answer by an authority figure, including Krishnamurti himself.
That is the ultimate intellectual integrity from a philosopher. Don't just take my word for it. The word is not the thing. Figure it out in your own mind. He is actively telling the audience, do not turn me into another one of your crutches. Because if you can ask yourself these deep questions, if you can watch your mind like a hawk and free yourself from this psychological time, you reach an incredible destination. He says you reach a state where you don't want gods and you don't want anything from anybody in the world. You become a truly internally free person.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a profound paradigm shift for humanity. We spend billions of dollars and endless, agonizing energy seeking external cures for our internal suffering.
Yeah.
We build better physical security systems, better bank accounts, and better pharmaceutical distractions. But Krishnamurti is showing us the incredible empowerment that comes from abandoning the external search and shifting to direct inward observation.
It's a total flip.
True freedom isn't found in engineering a perfectly secure future. It is found in the active, fearless perception of the present moment, completely free from the projecting shadow of the self.
It is about recognizing that the intruder inside the house isn't a monster. It is just a shadow cast by our own broken mental time machine. And the moment we stop running and turn on the light of pure, unlabeled awareness, the shadow simply vanishes,
Beautifully said.
which leaves us with a lingering thought for you to take with you into the rest of your day. Krishnamurti insists that radical change only comes from sitting completely with our deep loneliness, without giving it a name, and without moving away from it to seek comfort. So what would happen today if, in a moment of sudden emptiness, maybe you're sitting at a long red light or waiting alone in a quiet room, what if you didn't instinctively reach for your phone?
That's the challenge.
What if you didn't reach for your routine or try to distract yourself with a deep dive like this one? What exactly might you discover in the dead center of that silence if you simply stayed there? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mind. We'll catch you next time.